Hello, welcome to episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Monday, August 14th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It was a packed weekend in the world of sports with week one of the NFL preseason officially underway, although the Jets obviously played the Hall of Fame game, but this was the official week one of the NFL preseason, with games starting on Thursday with the Patriots and Texans and all the way throughout the weekend into yesterday. So preseason week one is behind us. 2 more weeks to go. And then we've got regular season football, and that's super exciting. A super exciting time of year to be an NFL fan with the NFL regular season right around the corner, especially in New York, because the baseball teams have been so bad and the football teams are providing a lot of optimism for this upcoming season, both the Jets and the Giants, which we'll get to in a little bit. We'll start today with the Yankees. I mean, yesterday was yet another disaster. It was a new low. Many of us at times have thought different points of this season. We have found that, some of these were the worst losses of the year. And then yesterday was another version of one of the worst losses of the season for this Yankee team. There's been a handful of them. And yesterday was a new level of low, was a new rock bottom. And if you're a New York Yankee fan, you wake up today feeling pretty much the way you felt for a while now. That is, you're hopeless. You have zero confidence in this front office, in this manager to do anything productive in the offseason and going into next year. And your overall feeling is, if Hal Steinbrenner doesn't wake up, we're going to go through this again for next year and the year after that. Until there's change, this is the way the Yankees organization is run now. And it's sad, but this is the sad state of affairs that the Yankees are in. So we'll get into that to open up this show. We'll also get into the Mets a little later on. They found a way to salvage the final game of a 4-game set against the Braves last night, despite Matt Olson hitting his 43rd home run, which was an absolute nuke out to right field. So despite some of that happening, the Mets did find a way to come away with a victory there against the Braves at home. The Yankees will now travel to Atlanta. That will probably be a disaster. The New York Circus, as I'm liking to call it, the Bronx Circus, is heading out to Atlanta. And there's a good chance they come out of there under 500 because they're 2 games up on 500. There's a really good chance they get swept against Atlanta. So we'll see how it all plays out. But we'll get to that to open up. I also want to get to a little bit of football later on. We got 2 shows in one day. We got this show right now, and then I'm doing a live stream at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. So stay tuned for that as well. Today, talking all things Jets, taking your comments, questions, and also taking your calls today live. So stay tuned for that as well if you're interested in stopping by. Definitely appreciate all the support if you can make it. But we'll get to the Jets and Giants a little later on. Jets, Panthers recap, Giants, Lions recap, and all things like that as we get ready for another week of training camp and another week of preseason games, as the Jets will host the Buccaneers this week for 2 joint practices as well, Wednesday, Thursday. So looking forward to that. Anyway, we got to start today with the New York Yankees and their pathetic embarrassment yesterday, and another level of low, another embarrassing loss for this organization, and just another reminder, if you still believed or if you haven't been reminded already, that number 1, this team isn't going where, number 2, this team is poorly run, and number 3, if there isn't significant change, this is just the way this Yankee team is going to be for the years and years and years moving forward. They're not going to develop any prospects. It's going to be the same disaster. It's going to be the same bad roster. And we're going to be watching the same mediocre baseball until there is legitimate change with this Yankee organization. I'll start with this, though. I mean, is there any chance that the Jets and Bills can play tonight? Can the Bills get on a flight right now, land in Newark, today, and play the Jets tonight, 8:15 on Monday Night Football, instead of having to wait until September? I know we're only 4 weeks away. We're officially, I guess today officially marks the 4-week point from the Monday night game, Jets-Bills. Can we start tonight? Can football start tonight? Can we just cancel the rest of the preseason and get Jets-Bills on the field tonight? Because I cannot take this bad baseball. I need the regular season for the NFL to come, and I need it now. And I know we're still a little ways out. We are entering preseason week 2, and you can smell football in the air. It's coming. But I don't know how much more of this Yankee baseball I can watch and I can take, and how much more I can sit here and rant and talk about it, because I feel like I've used up everything. Yesterday was so predictable. You saw that coming yesterday. I'm not even surprised. Maybe you didn't see it coming. I don't know if you would place an in-game bet that the Marlins would put up 5 runs in the 9th inning, but you're not even surprised about yesterday's performance, because you've seen this before out of this team. This team's just simply not good enough. Like, losing a game yesterday like that doesn't even surprise me because this team many times this year has found ways to lose games in many different ways. Like, there's been so many times this season where we've looked at losses as some of the worst losses of the year, as rock bottom for this Yankee team. Like that White Sox series, losing 2 of 3 against the White Sox, we thought that was rock bottom. You know, the way they lost the final game against the Astros, that was a terrible loss. You even go back to the Colorado series back in July, fresh out of the All-Star break. I was in attendance for that game at Coors Field where the New York Yankees blew the lead late, went into extra innings, blew multiple 2-run leads. You had the C.J. Cron grand slam. We thought that was the worst loss of the year. There has been so many moments this season that the New York Yankees, we feel like they were at rock bottom, or we felt like those were the worst performance, or it couldn't get much worse. But what does this Yankee team do? Well, they prove you wrong. Because it can get worse. And they proved that yesterday with a 7-2 lead going into the 8th. The Marlins put up 1 run in the 8th and then 5 runs off of Clay Holmes and Tommy Kahnle, who came in and obviously, you know, he led up the walk-off to Jake Berger. You had the whole, you know, again, the Tommy Kahnle came in, led up the walk-off. But either way, Clay Holmes yesterday, a third of an inning, 5 runs, 3 hits, 4 earned, a walk and a strikeout in 23 pitches, and the Yankees lose. You saw that coming. And yesterday was another, again, reminder, but another showcase of how sad this Yankee team is, how inept this organization is, and another, I don't know if you want to call it reminder or another, I don't know, wake-up call. Wake-up call is a good word to use, to Hal Steinbrenner, that he needs to wake up, recognize this team stinks the way it's currently run, and he needs to make significant changes. The Yankees right now are 60-58. They are 13 games back in the American League East. They are last place in the AL East. They have a worse record than the Minnesota Twins. That's when you know it's bad. They have a worse record than an AL Central team. That's when you know the season is getting out of hand. When the AL Central is better than you. They are now 5 games out of a wild card spot. And the Blue Jays yesterday won, so they obviously dropped the whole game. I was actually glad the Blue Jays won because I was going up against Jameis Tyone in fantasy baseball, and he got negative 20 points for my opponent. So I actually won. Yeah, I won my fantasy baseball matchup last week because Jameis and Tyone blew the game. I also had some really good pitching performances from Julio Urias to the Dodgers and Dane Dunning of the Rangers, but that definitely helped me. So I'm glad the Blue Jays won. At this point, I care more about my fantasy baseball season or fantasy baseball team because they have a better chance of doing anything They have a better chance of winning a championship than the Yankees do actually getting to the postseason. Than the Yankees do. I mean, we have to watch so many more meaningless games of this team too. But back to my Hal Steinbrenner point. The Yankees, unfortunately, they still think they're smarter than everybody else. When they're not. They're not smarter than everybody else. They're actually a very poorly run and behind the times organization. They don't develop prospects. They don't have good player development. They rely too much on the analytics. And this is where you have it. This team has been a colossal disaster since Aaron Boone has taken over. Because at the end of the day, and I mention this a lot, the Yankees are a just-get-in organization. If the Yankees get into the playoffs, Hal Steinbrenner in the front office considers it a successful season. It doesn't matter if you get embarrassed in the ALCS last year, and while getting embarrassed, you have to show a clip of the Boston Red Sox of 2004 who came back from down 3-0 to beat the Yankees. Aaron Boone is showing that clip to the Yankees locker room before Game 4. I mean, that's a fireable offense. One of the lowest points in Yankees history. You're showing that to the Yankee team to try and get them hyped up for a game? Like, what are we doing there? But it's okay. They got to the playoffs. It's all right. And the playoffs are a crapshoot. Let's just tell it like it is. But that's what the Yankees are. They're a mediocre at best baseball team. They're really bad at times, like yesterday. But they settle for mediocrity. It's sad. It's really sad because what this organization used to be, winning it in 96, winning it in 98, winning in 99, winning in 2000, beating the Mets obviously in 2000 in 5 games, the Subway Series, like the 90s, the glory days, winning those championships. You even go way back in times with the Yogi Berra days and all that stuff, winning those championships, being one of the greatest, most recognizable franchise in all sports, and what it's come to is so sad. You have one of the biggest name brands in sports. Cowboys, Lakers, Yankees. I know there's some soccer teams. I'm not a soccer fan, but I know there's some soccer teams up there that are extremely rich and extremely popular nationally. The Yankees are a national brand. It's sad that they've come to this where winning's not their main priority. Like, at the end of the day, all they care about is, number one, all Hal Steinbrenner cares about is, as long as Hal Steinbrenner, and this is the unfortunate part, as long as there's people going to the games, and there's 40,000 plus going to the games, Hal Steinbrenner's okay with it. As long as there's 40,000 plus there every game, and they're buying chicken buckets, they're buying Aaron Judge burgers, that's money in Hal's pocket. He couldn't care less about the product on the field, but all he cares about is the money going into my pocket. It's all good. It's what the Yankees, mediocrity, they love it. They love this brand of baseball, the mediocre New York Yankees. They're a circus. And I'm so tired of watching this team or listening to this team talk about every year, we went over the luxury tax, we spent this money. Well, number one, look at where you're spending the money. You're giving the money to guys like Josh Donaldson. You're giving the money to guys like Carlos Rodon. You gave Stanton that massive contract back in 2018 that hasn't panned out at all. That's where the money's going. Instead of bragging about how much money you've spent because you've spent it in the wrong places, number one, let's look back at all the players they've missed out on over the years because they think they're smarter than everybody else and they think that bringing in a plan B, plan C is better than going out and getting the top guy, but that's just the way the Yankees are now. They thought they were smarter than everybody else trading away Gio Urshela for Josh Donaldson and bringing in Ben Rortvedt. They thought they were geniuses when anybody that has any common sense knew Josh Donaldson was washed. I mean, how much more do the Yankees need to see? I mean, like, where in the world do they see something in Josh Donaldson that thought he would be a productive player when they traded for him, obviously, in last year's offseason? Like, what? Again, think they were smarter than everybody else. But instead of bragging about, the luxury tax, we spent this amount of money, number one, you spent it in the wrong places. Number two, take that time, make changes, and instead of spending a ton, instead of going out there and, we brought in this guy, let's settle for this guy, maybe develop the farm system. Invest a little bit into player development. Because how many times have we seen prospects come through here, not pan out, and they're gone? And Davy Garcia was the latest of them. I mean, the guy was one of the top prospects, come up. Yankees misuse him, put him in the farm system. They don't help develop him. I mean, the Anthony Volpe situation, too, is eye-opening. There was not a single coach in that locker room, on that coaching staff, that could have sat there with Anthony Volpe to watch film and say, you know what? Let's watch film and see what you're doing wrong. Instead, it took Austin Wells, at the time a Double-A catcher, his former teammate in Somerset, to be in his home in Watchung Hills eating chicken parm to say, you know what? Let's look at a tablet, let's look at some film, and see if we can fix something. Not the coaches. It took a Double-A catcher for the New York Yankees. Now, obviously, in Triple-A, but that's what it took. This coaching staff's so incompetent, they can't even sit with a young, struggling rookie to watch film and try to help them. And when guys come here, like, there's no either, too. When you get to the actual players, there's no approach at the plate with these guys. There's no approach. Watch Stanton's first at-bat yesterday. Yuri Perez of the Marlins threw him 4 pitches, all 3 of them low and outside. Stanton swung at 3 of them. There's no approach. They're free swingers. Launch angle, analytics, We want exit velo. Don't care about the strikeouts. We're not going to hit with runners in scoring position, but if we hit home runs, we're going to find a way to win games. We're going to find a way to get into the postseason. That's all we care about. You know what the Yankees need? They need guys that can get on base. They need guys that can hit for average. They need guys that can hit with runners in scoring position. They also need speed. They need a whole lot. They need a lot. Because this team's just broken. They're broken. I mentioned this the other day. The only guys on this roster that are untouchable in my eyes are Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge, and I wouldn't give up on Volpe yet. I don't think I'd trade Volpe. Again, if the Angels at the deadline, let's just hypothetically say, came calling and say, hey, or let's say the Angels said, or whatever, you're in a conversation with the Angels and Shohei Ohtani became available at the deadline. Hypothetically saying, then I might pull a trigger because you're getting Shohei Ohtani. I mean, this is one of the greatest baseball players we've ever seen. So then I might pull a trigger. But other than that, I'm not trading Volpe. Those are the three guys, though, that to my eyes are untouchable. Not saying that like I don't like Harrison Bader or some of these other pieces. I do, but I don't necessarily view those guys as untouchable. I think you can get something for those guys. They're free agents, whatever it is. But major changes need to be made. The Yankees need to retool. And that's why I give a lot of credit to the New York Mets. I know Mets fans don't want to hear me sit here and go on and on about how they sold it to deadline because Mets fans, I feel you. You're just as disappointed because you went into the season, you had expectations of getting into the postseason and contending for a championship, and you couldn't do it. So believe me, I understand you probably don't want to hear me go on and on about how the Mets sold, but you got to give them credit. They realized we're not going anywhere. They recognize they have a clear need in the farm system, and they revamped their top 5 prospects. They revamped them. They brought in 2 guys that insert into their top 5 in the organization. What did the Yankees do at the deadline? Let's bring in a reliever who they didn't even utilize the right way yesterday. Why was Kenya Middleton not in that game in the 8th inning or the 9th inning? He threw 12 pitches. It's a non-save situation. Clay Holmes just pitched on Friday. I understand he's pitched once in the last week, but save Clay. Like, there's no need to put him out. I just don't. I don't know. I would have put in Middleton again. I don't know why they didn't walk Jake Berger. The guy's been hitting really well since he joined the Marlins. He's a power hitter. He going into that at bat, he dominated the Yankees this series with 6 hits. He went 7 for 12 this series overall. That's a .583 batting average. I don't know why Boone thought it'd be a good idea to just let him hit, but either way, they did. I don't know why the Yankees are doing what they're doing. I just don't understand the whole thought process of it. But they need look, and even if like this is the whole aspect of it too, is even if Aaron Boone is handing, or even if Brian Cashman's handing Aaron Boone a binder, then there's problems right there. Boom, the problem's Cashman. And I don't want to see, because I think Boone will be a scapegoat, but I don't want to see them just fire Aaron Boone. Because then what are you going to do? You're going to bring in a head coach. You're going to bring in another manager. Lovely. You're going to bring in another manager, and he's going to sit there and look at all the analytics just like Boone did. And he's going to be a puppet. That's what he's going to do. And he's probably going to mess up decisions in the bullpen. You're going to bring in, there's no accountability in this locker room. Boone, there's zero accountability. You're going to bring another manager that's just going to stand there. He's just going to be a placeholder. If Boone actually had to create the lineup and actually had to do things on his own, he'd be terrible, because we've seen signs of it. You've also seen Brian Cashman he has too much power. You need to move on. You need to move on and restart. You've got 2 bright young baseball, you got 2 bright baseball minds in the organization right now. Omar Minaya and Brian Sabian. Brian Sabian built those Giants teams that won 3 World Series. He was a big reason why he built those teams. Omar Minaya is a very good talent evaluator. 2 guys that can invest in the farm, evaluate talent when it comes to young prospects, and revamp this roster. You have 2 guys right there. If I'm Hal, now you don't have to go outside of the organization. I personally would still give Theo Epstein a call. If it was me, if I was owner, I probably would have. I mean, maybe if I'm owner, I'm probably have a little bit of different view on things. But you get what I'm saying. If I would still give Theo Epstein a call. I know he wants ownership. I know he wants a percentage of ownership. He wants like all the power in the world. I get that. I'd still give him a call. The least you can do is call him. If he says, hey, no, or you don't agree with the whole ownership aspect of it, fine. But the least you can do is give him a call. What you can do, the least you can do, right? I would. Theo Epstein. Again, you have 2 guys in, you have solutions. Like I think he's scared to make decisions, but there are the solutions there to potentially retool, evaluate talent the right way, and get this team back on the track. Because again, yesterday was another wasted Garrett Cole start. He didn't have his best stuff, but he gave you 6 innings and 2 runs, 6 Ks. And you wasted a performance from him because you blew it in the 9th inning. And again, this wasn't just yesterday. This has been the entire season. This has been for years. I've talked about this for a while now. I would have never hired Aaron Boone in the first place. I would have never fired Girardi in the first place after they got to the ALCS in 2017. That team had no expectations going into the year, and they got to Game 7 of the ALCS. That's the closest they've been. Since Boone taken over, they haven't gotten that close. The closest since then is Game 6 of the ALCS against the Astros when Chapman allowed a homer against Altuve. That's it. I would have made decisions. And again, now the Yankees are behind because the Yankees are so far behind because they've got themselves tied into even more bad contracts now. I've talked about this. I would have made changes after the 2021 season. That was a colossal disaster where they got to the wild card. They lost the wild card game to the Red Sox. They barely got into the playoffs. It took a Aaron Judge walk-off hit to get them into the postseason. I think it was a 1-0 win over the Rays. That's what it took for the Yankees to get to the postseason. That's what it took. So I would have made changes then, and you would have been set up after 2 years of retooling with new guys in the building. The Yankees probably would have been set up to win this year or next year. Instead, they're even more behind because they've got themselves tied into the Donaldson contract, tied into the Rodon contract. You've got yourselves tied into even more issues. When I talk about, and again, and this is why I don't know where Hal doesn't realize. You look at this roster, the talent's just not there. You're in a playoff race. You still have to consider them in a playoff. They're still in the hunt. And while you're trying to get a playoff spot, Jake Bauers is your leadoff hitter. He's also playing first. He went 0 for 5 yesterday with 5 strikeouts. I mean, Billy McKinney's playing left field. That's another fireable offense. How in the world does Hal Steinbrenner keep letting Brian Cashman let offseason by offseason go by without addressing the clear need that is the left fielder? How does Cashman let that happen? Or Hal keep letting Cashman get away with that? It's sad. Billy McKinney's your left fielder. He's a minor leaguer. He's a minor league, borderline MLB talent that gets called up if a team needs him. That's what he's there for. Guy hits the IL, McKinney comes in. He should not be your everyday left fielder when you're trying to make the postseason. Neither should Jake Bauers. And I know he provides a little bit of pop. The guy, he's Tampa, Cleveland, Seattle. It's Jake Bauers. Come on now. This guy is, again, the Yankees think they're smarter than everybody else. This guy isn't going to all of a sudden magically turn into Barry Bonds. Come on now. What? This is, again, Jake Bauers, Billy McKinney, Greg Allen. What exactly do the Yankees see in these guys? The catcher position is terrible. And even with Trevino healthy, he wasn't producing. It's terrible. The Yankees still haven't found a catcher since Jorge Posada. They haven't. And that's how bad it's been. They thought they had something in Gary Sanchez. They ruined him. They put him into the whole approach of, strike out a lot, hit home runs, and you look what happened to him. They also never worked on his defense because, again, player development with the Yankees is really bad. They can't help prospects. They don't know how to develop prospects. Gleyber Torres is another great example. He'll never be what we thought he was because the Yankees put him into their analytical approach. They don't help him develop, and that's what the Yankees do. So, you just look at this lineup. It's so bad. It's so bad. You got needs in left. You got a need at third base. You got a need potentially at second if Gleyber goes. Potentially at center field if Bader walks in free agency. You've got a need at catcher. You've got a need in the rotation. You're in a really, I'm not even kidding. If Rodon is not right, you're in a terrible spot because you're never going to be able to trade him because nobody's going to want to take on that contract. Rodon that's one of the scariest situations too. The Yankees this is year one of a 6-year, $162 million contract with Rodon. There's no getting out of this anytime soon. There's none of it. Neither is there any getting out of Stanton's or stuff, but there's no getting out of it. And you just signed him this year. Don't worry, though. You even go back to the other moves. Frankie Montes. Yankees thought they were smarter than everybody else. We're not going to go out and get Luis Castillo. We're going to go out and get Frankie Montes. We know he has shoulder issues, but we still feel good about it. And sure enough, look, he ends up with a shoulder injury. He's going to miss the entire year. Just one of the many trade deadline blunders with this Yankee team. So the issues go way back. They're so internal. This team is internally, there is a wildfire spreading internally with this team. I mean, it really is. I mean, you go from, again, the top down. Howell to Cashman to Boone. There is a dumpster fire. I should say that. That's the right way to put it, because the Yankees are a dumpster fire. There is a spreading dumpster fire in this Yankee clubhouse, in this Yankee organization. It's spreading from one dumpster to the other. It started with Howell, now it's trickling down to Cashman, now down to Boone, now into the locker room, hitting coach. It's just so bad. And again, like the whole hitting coach situation. Dylan Lawson gets fired. Great. What has Sean Casey done? This team still can't hit. I know great. They put up 7 runs yesterday. They couldn't hit against the Chicago White Sox. They were getting walked. They've struck out 18 times with Casey at hitting coach. But don't worry. The at-bats are good outside of the 18 strikeouts. So, Yankees lose again, 8-7. They now go into Atlanta. 3 games against the Braves. I don't even know what to expect with these 3 games. They're going to be ugly. They're going to be really ugly. They might come away with this under 500. And we'll see what happens moving forward. I don't expect any major changes because it's the Yankees, and they're afraid of change, unfortunately. But that's just the way they're operated now. So I don't know. Either way, Yankees lose again. Their only series win since July, a series sweep against the Kansas City Royals. The Royals. And I'll give you a Royals update on their record. The Kansas City Royals are a whopping 38-81. That's who the Yankees beat. Their only series win since the start of July was that sweep against the Royals. That's it. And the Royals are a whopping 80-loss team. So, that's all you need to know about this Yankee team. And for that matter, this Yankee organization that has got a dumpster fire. It's just a dumpster fire. It's not a spreading dumpster fire. It's a smoldering or smeltering, whatever they want to call it. It's a dumpster fire. They're a dumpster fire. It's what they are. So, train wreck, dumpster fire, any of those words apply for this Yankee organization. All right, so anyway, we move on to football here. A little bit of positivity here on the show today because the football season is right around the corner. As I mentioned, I wish the Jets could play tonight against the Bills. I wish the Giants and the first NFL Sunday could have started yesterday, so then we could take our eyes off of this bad Yankee team. But football season around the corner. We got 2 preseason games left. That's the way I look at it. 2 preseason games left this week, next week, and then that's it. You're done. And then it's a week off, then the regular season. So football season, you can smell it in the air. It's coming right around the corner. Jets had a preseason game on Saturday. Giants had a preseason game on Friday. So you had a little double dose of preseason football, Jets, Giants, and Jets. So that was good to see. Took my eyes off the Yankees for a little bit, watching the Giants and the Jets. And then obviously yesterday, wasn't watching any of those, so I had to watch the Yankees, and that's where the ugliness came in. But we'll start with the Giants here because we've talked a lot of Jets on the show. I'm also doing a Jets live stream later on. So we'll start with the Giants and their first preseason game, which was against the Lions, obviously at Ford Field in Detroit. They lost 21-16, had the lead for a while. They blew it late. They were winning 13-3, I think, at one point. Then the Lions came back, put up 11 in the third, and then had the late touchdown in the fourth to make it a 21-16 game. Tommy DeVito, the legend, the Syracuse legend, Tommy DeVito, who is Illinois. Well, Illinois, I think he played Syracuse too. I think he played at both, actually. I think he went Syracuse and final year was Illinois. So either way, the legend, Tommy DeVito, 25 years old, got a lot of burn Friday for the New York Giants. So that was interesting to watch. He did play pretty well, but they did lose 21-16 again. Doesn't really matter. They'll get ready now for another home game here, or a home game against the Panthers. And it's funny because the Giants and the Jets actually both don't travel outside of MetLife until week 2. Because the Jets and the Giants have a home game this week against the Bucks on Saturday. Giants have a home game against the Panthers on Friday. Then it's the Jets-Giants at MetLife for the final preseason game, the Snoopy Bowl or whatever they like to call it. And then the Giants host the Cowboys Sunday Night Football Week 1. Then the Jets host the Bills Monday Night Football Week 1. And then both teams will hit the road. Jets will go to Dallas. Giants will go to Arizona. So Giants-Jets, both are home cooking for a little while until Week 2. So that's always a good thing. But either way, I think there were a lot of positives still to take away from the Giants. I know there is a lot of Giants fans that are still worried about the depth of the team, where, you see some of the depth come in late in the game, struggle a little bit. You're still kind of worried about some of the backups, how deep this team really is outside of the starters, where they have good, talented starters. But, what ultimately could be the difference in, potentially making the playoffs or getting to the playoffs, potentially winning and losing a playoff game could be the depth, and how does their depth line up against some of these other teams in the NFC. That's one of the tougher parts, because I think there still is some fans that are a little concerned about the depth, but that's to be expected because, again, they're still kind of a rebuilding team, and they're still not all in on, they're not a Super Bowl contender just yet. They definitely could get to the postseason. I do see that potentially, getting one of the last wild card spots again. I could potentially see it, but they're still developing. There's still a lot of young guys on this team that have to grow. There's still a lot of things that have to happen. There's still a couple more moves that they have to make to get ultimately to where they can be a top 5 Super Bowl contender. And that's to be expected. Again, this is only year 2 of the Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll. They're trying to still undo a lot of what Dave Gettleman did and bring in other guys with their cap space situation, how they have to handle it, and bring in some other pieces, especially depth pieces. So that's kind of just wanted to get out in the open there. To go through the offense, to go through what happened, Tommy DeVito actually looked good. I know everyone jokes about him, but he looked good. He went 15-24 for 155 yards. He had a touchdown, had the late interception. But all in all, played well. And I don't think he'll be the second quarterback on the roster or the backup behind Daniel Jones, but there's a good chance he solidified his spot as quarterback 3, which will be on the practice squad. And I know they have the whole new quarterback rules where you don't have to be active or whatever. You can be active, don't have to suit up, but if the quarterback goes down, whatever it is. But he played really well, and he solidified potentially a spot on the Giants practice squad. So, again, I don't know, you'd have to cut him, get him to the practice squad if he ever gets picked up, but there is a good chance that he would. At least he put good tape on for the Giants and potentially some other teams out there. Tyrod Taylor went 3 of 4 for 7 yards, barely played. They had a couple short passes with him. Tommy DeVito was, played a good chunk of the game and actually looked pretty good. So I think if you're a Giants fan, you got to like that. You get another quarterback there. Again, it doesn't mean a whole lot, but he's probably quarterback 3, preseason practice squad. Obviously, no Daniel Jones, so wasn't a whole lot to take away there from the quarterbacks, but Tommy DeVito did play well. Slot receivers looked really good. Cole Beasley, Jamison Crowder, 2 former AFC East guys. Beasley, obviously, spent time with Buffalo with Brian Daboll and also Dallas. Crowder obviously spent some time both in the NFC East. Also, at the time, Redskins, now Commanders. Spent some time with the Jets, now here with the Giants. So you saw those guys get action. The Giants have a lot of slot receivers. Their slot receivers are very deep. They've got a lot of pieces there that can play the slot, play outside as well, kind of have some flexibility there with some of their receivers. So, you saw some of it there with just some of the backups on some guys fighting for roster spots on Friday. You continue to see it in camp. The slot receivers, they like to utilize those guys a lot. That's kind of the Brian Daboll system. I mean, you saw Beasley have that one huge year in Buffalo where he had 900-plus yards, I believe it was. So, you saw some of those guys. Jason, you go to the defense side of the football again. The young cornerbacks look good. Deonte Banks, I thought, had a solid game from what I saw. A guy that has had some ups and downs in Kane training camp. But again, that's to be expected. I do think there's been some Giants fans out there that have overreacted at times to the whole Deonte Banks situation and the Deonte Banks draft pick in terms of struggling a little bit during training camp. I think there's definitely been some Giants fans that have been a little too worried or overreacting a little bit. It's to be expected. There's going to be some early growing pains. There's going to be some struggles. He's not perfect, but he's got a lot of upside. There's a lot of talent. Good physical young player. Brings a lot of energy. Very competitive. He's going to be fine. I thought he looked good on Friday. I thought he's looked a lot better than he did in training camp. So it was a good start for him. The young quarterbacks in general played pretty well, but especially Deonte Banks, guy that you had your eyes on as a potential piece to go out there and see what he can do after having some rough training camp practices. Again, he's a rookie. A lot of times people, myself included, we tend to overreact to training camp practices. What happens in training camp practice, you can only take so much from a training camp practice. You can only take so much from it. Because a lot of times, you look at guys, they're really good in training camp, bright lights come on, they struggle. There's guys that aren't very good in training camp sometimes, they come on, bright lights come on, and they all of a sudden playing really well. So Deonte Banks, I thought, looked fine. No highlight plays, nothing crazy, but he did what he needed to do, held his coverage, he had a tackle. I thought Tay Banks was all right. Continue to want to see him develop. Got 2 more preseason games left. Continue to work with him. Again, guy developing, building for the future. Jason Pinnock probably had one of the best games I've seen. Trey Hawkins also had a tackle for loss. Or I apologize, that wasn't Trey Hawkins. That was Tayshawn Bauer, I think it was. Who, linebacker, I think he had I was looking at the box score wrong. Apologize for that. But, Jason Pinnock, what a game for him. Former Jet. Just from a Jet perspective here, I still feel as if the Jets shouldn't have cut Jason Pinnock. I still kind of look back on that and question the whole Jason Pinnock decision to not cut him or to cut him. But, because looking back on it, you could have had Tony Adams, Jason Pinnock as your 2 safeties right now, 2 young guys. The Jets chose to go with Tony Adams as opposed to Jason Pinnock, but Jason Pinnock was dominant in this game. So he had 2 passes defended. He had a tackle for loss. He had the interception. He was just phenomenal. He was great. So Pinnock early on, one of the first plays, intercepted it from Nate Sudfeld. Eagles legend, Nate Sudfeld, who, if you remember, was the whole controversial game back when they were playing the Commanders when the Giants were trying to make the postseason back in 2020. The Eagles benched Jalen Hurts to bring in Nate Sudfeld, and then Nate Sudfeld didn't do well, and if you remember that whole thing from the Giants. So got a little revenge on Nate Sudfeld there, the interception. But Pinnock looked great. Pinnock's young. He's very athletic. He's quick. He's explosive. Corner, can play safety as well. There's a lot to like when it comes to Jason Pinnock and his ability to go out there and play at a high level. And I liked what I saw out of him with the Jets. Again, that versatility is so huge. That's the one thing I still question to this day as to why the Jets moved on from him. I understand. I guess I understand why, but I still don't. I get why, because they elected to go with Tony Adams. They chose him over to a washed LaMarcus Joyner. I still would have liked another coverage guy, young, versatility. Jets didn't. Either way, they cut him. He got picked up by the Giants, but very good piece for the Giants. A guy to be excited about. I think he'll take a big jump this year. And obviously the Jets, too. When you look at the Jets side of things, they obviously took a 27-0 win against the Panthers. The defensive line was dominant. What a time to be a Jets fan when you look at this defensive line. Whatever you want to call them, Sack Exchange 2.0, New Sack City, I've also heard, too. Some people bring up that name. 5 sacks for this defensive line for the New York Jets, and I'll go through all of them. So Jermaine Johnson had a half a sack, Deslin Alexander sack, Quentin Jefferson sack, Bruce Hector strip sack, Will McDonald had a sack, Bryce Huff had a half a sack, 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 3 passes defended, 8 quarterback hits. The defense was dominant. Jamie Moreland also looked good. He had an interception, pass defended as well. Jamie Moreland's been a guy that, or 2 pass defended, he's been a guy that I have an under the radar, potentially making the roster. Has really impressed so far during camp. Brandon Echols I thought looked good. Trey Dean also had a nice game. Zaire Barnes. All 3 touchdowns for the Jets came from the tight ends. Continue to use the tight end room. Zach Wilson, good day. Running backs, good day for them with Dalvin Cook still being available. The Jets running backs are proven to this organization that they don't need to go out to get Dalvin Cook. It was a good day to be a Jets running back, a bad day to be Dalvin Cook yesterday, or on Saturday rather. Becton I thought looked good. And again, I'll have more on the New York Jets on the live stream show that I'll be doing here in about a half hour, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Taking your comments, taking your calls as well. So I'll be live for that, 11:30. So looking forward to that. So stay tuned. Definitely tune in if you can. Appreciate all the support. And that's your Jets and Giants update. So now you move on to the games tonight in the MLB. Yankees, Braves tonight. Yankees coming to the game with Clark Schmidt on the mound versus Max Fried. Clark Schmidt's 8-6 with a 4.23 ERA. Max Fried's 3-1 with a 2.50 ERA. So Probably going to be ugly. Schmidt's been good, but the Braves are just better, in my opinion. Quinn Priester and Carlos Carrasco on the mound for the Mets Pirates tonight. Priester, I think it might be Priester, however you pronounce it. He's 2-1 with an 8.75 ERA. Carrasco is 3-6 with a 6.42 ERA. So that is your bad baseball update for the night. Little Monday night baseball. We'll see if one team wins. Maybe a team wins. I don't know. Probably the Mets win. I don't know. Who knows? Either way, Yankees, Braves, Mets, Pirates tonight. Hard Knocks tomorrow night, so that's good. That'll use as a distraction for this terrible baseball. And, yeah, that's about it. And then Jets, Bucks joint practices, so there will be a decent amount of distractions to distract us from the baseball season here coming up. So, anyway, that'll do it for the episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. I'll be back here tomorrow talking all things New York sports. As I mentioned, be live at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 11:40 a.m. Eastern, taking your comments, taking your calls, talking Jets, Panthers, anything else you want to talk about, open topics, any Jets topics, NFL topics you want to discuss, leave them in those comments or in the live stream comments when I'm live, and I'll answer those, take all your questions, take your calls, and talk all things Jets. So stay tuned for that. As always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.